Recent Israeli strikes in Gaza's Rafah has led to the death of at least 45 Palestinians. Now, this area was apparently home to hundreds and thousands of Palestinian migrants, and because of the attacks, there was an explosion in one of the fuel tanks which led to a lot of deaths. And then soon after, there were very disturbing videos of headless babies that have been going around on social medias. They are being shared by lots and lots of people. And then there is a new trend, which we'll be discussing today. It's called All Eyes on Rafah. Everyone from across the world has jumped on in this trend, and they are sharing stories on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, everywhere, from Bollywood to students to politicians to big time celebrities. Everyone is sharing All Eyes on Rafah. So let's understand this trend, or whether it is completely authentic, because there's a lot of questions about All Eyes on Rafah. So we are talking today to senior journalist Abhijit Majumder. Hi Abhijit.
Hi Geetika.
Abhijit, what is All Eyes on Rafah? Because everyone from Alia Bhatt to Rohit Sharma's wife to Madhuri Dixit, everyone is sharing on their stories All Eyes on Rafah.
So that begs a few questions to begin with. First of all, what is Rafah? Why is it so important? Do any of these so-called influencers know about Rafah? Why is it so important in this war? Second is, where did this trend come from? Reports are now emerging that a PR company approached all these influencers to post under this trend. Rohit Sharma's wife Ritika has now deleted the post after tremendous outrage. And naturally, when suddenly a group of so-called influencers who have very little to do with politics or world affairs suddenly jump onto a bandwagon on the same day under the same hashtag, obviously people are right in asking questions. That who is behind it? Who's the PR company who approached these influencers? Who's the client of this PR company? Are there clients of PR companies who approached them during the anti-CAA protests in India, during the farm law protests against the 3 farm laws? We have seen that people from Rihanna to this porn star Mia Khalifa, and everybody, Navratilova, footballer Ozil, they suddenly started writing about India's farm laws. They started posting about. So clearly there is a very orchestrated sort of movement that happens. Orchestrated, I won't say movement, but a very orchestrated campaign that have been happening with certain events.
Because you mentioned the orchestration of events, now the reports coming in about the authenticity of this particular template. Because I opened my Instagram and it was flooded with this All Eyes on Rafah, and in the backdrop you have these tents and these camps. So someone is saying that they are actually AI generated.
Of course, it's AI generated. There are no snow-capped mountains in any. I mean, the highest peak in that region is 105 meters, tops, and there are no such coffins. It's purely AI generated, and the visuals of cars, it seems, have been tweaked. But then there have been, AI generated responses to that poster, counter posters, which are, equally strong and interesting, where you see a baby and you see a Hamas terrorist with a gun pointed to the baby, and the poster says, "Where were your eyes when this was happening on October 7th?"
Right.
So it's about the selectivity of outrage.
But Abhijit, uh, make me understand this one thing, that even though the image or that template is AI generated,
There's
and
no harm in it.
yeah, there's no harm in it, but the thing is, the trend is that all eyes on Rafah. Why is the UN not, and why are the countries across the world not able to convince Israel for a ceasefire? Like, because if this continues, there's of course going to be a lot of loss of lives.
No, so this brings us to a much wider sort of debate. Israel believes, and I personally feel rightly so, that what is Hamas after all? Hamas was actually elected to govern Gaza
Mm-hmm.
by the entire population, knowing that it was a militant terrorist outfit, with violent means. It was elected to govern Gaza. What happened on October 7th was not the first and the last. Hamas has been killing Israelis, for a very long time. But what happened on October 7th was, was shocking. Babies were burnt, beheaded, killed. Women, 320 women were abducted. Uh, dozens of them raped. While they were being raped, they were shot in the head. All these atrocities, through everything a certain section of people kept, mom. There were no eyes. Did they not have eyes? Did they not have tongue? Do they only have bank accounts? So we have seen recreational outrage on social media, but this is promotional outrage. This is, only when a certain amount of money hits your bank, you suddenly post about all this.
Do you think it's become cool among people of my generation, or young kids today, or the millennials or the Gen Zs, to just brainlessly jump on the bandwagon? Because the other day I was discussing with a friend, and she was pretty disturbed because someone had shared a video of this headless baby on their Instagram without any
Context?
yeah, without any context, and they had just shared this one baby. And for someone who is randomly picking up their phone and is watching something like that without any trigger warning, first of all, such sensitive and disturbing content, it makes them take a step back and sort of question themselves, that, oh my goodness, what is happening in the world? So are people just
So either
jumping
they're
on the
supremely uninformed, because beheading is a signature of Islamist terrorist. One image can just take. See, the whole Islamist psyops, or the entire campaign, information war, is fought by taking exceptions and blowing them out of proportion. Why do you think so many Arab states, so many Arab nations have none of them, even Egypt, it's a Muslim dominated country, they have refused to take any refugees from Palestine.
Yes.
Saudi Arab, Jordan, UAE, they've categorically said that we are not taking any refugees, because they know that this is trouble. They know that this is, it's a well-funded militant operation. So it's a very, very complex, murky world out there. It's sad when, on American campuses and in India, the whole thing, selling terror as resistance, is a deeply problematic thing. It is deeply problematic thing. The whole selectivity, taking exceptions and and showing that as a rule. Suppose a terrible tragedy happens, and say 100 people are lined up and shot, and there is 101 video where somebody with a fake gun is just joking.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that those 100 people were not shot.
Right.
So, you can't take exceptions and blow it out of proportion. It is Israel's decision. Israel feels that unless Hamas is dealt with, and we have seen numerous examples where Hamas has dug. Why does Hamas, do you think, why does Hamas have its tunnels under hospitals, under schools, under every sensitive, civilian target, civilian this thing area? Because the moment you're attacking Hamas, immediately you trigger another wing of the war. That is the information wing.
Right. And because you mentioned this, I'm not sure, but reports have been coming in that there was apparently military, storage in this
Yeah, so
refugee area
there
as
were
well.
secondary explosions. That video
Yes.
where they're actually saying in Arabic that there was a Hamas truck or something laden with weapons. Uh, there is another theory that rocket was misfired by Hamas onto its own this thing. But there is no doubt that Israel is going into Rafah. Israel has breached all the crossings and gone into Rafah, and there is a massive humanitarian crisis because Rafah is so important. Let us please understand this, because Rafah is the last point of refuge for Gazans. In a way, northern Gaza first, Israel took northern Gaza strip. There was a exodus which came to the middle point. From there, the exodus kept, and Israel said that you move to Rafah. Now, Israel thinks that even in Rafah, there are several Hamas operatives who are operating, and they need to storm Rafah. This is war. In a way, it is a terrible tragedy. It has to stop. But Israel says that we are up against a mindset where if we give up arms, Israel will cease to exist. But if Hamas gives up arms, then there will be peace. So unless we finish the last of our enemies, unless we decapacitate them for the future, Israelis cannot live in peace. You must understand that Israel is a small land surrounded by so-called enemies. Although the Arab states, and this is the whole timing of this is so important. The timing of the October 7 attacks was so important because Israel has already, when Trump was the president, he oversaw this entire historic pact, the Abrahamic Accord, between Israel and United Arab Emirates. Saudi is about to be a co-signatory to that accord.
Yes.
Imagine how important that would be for the Middle East. Middle East, with its resources, with its it could turn out to be the next Europe, which Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of the UAE, has been saying that I want to turn Saudi and the Middle East, entire Middle East, into the new Europe. So this is the whole point, is to disrupt that. Disrupt the Abrahamic Accords, disrupt peace in the Middle East. So, this whole facile things of wearing a keffiyeh on US campuses, and, it's a manifestation of, one extremely edgy, cut off individual, individuals, youngsters becoming small islands. And second is there is persistent funding of this from globalists like Soros, Rockefeller, etc. The campus, if you read about who's funding the campus protests in America, that thousands of dollars going into a steady flow of pizza and soda and everything for the campus protesters. So it's a very, it's disturbing at several levels. It is disturbing.
This is my last question. Do you think it's the same as what happened when the Russia-Ukraine war had just started and people were, advocating for the Ukrainian refugees and the constant bombings from both the sides without being informed about, what's actually happening between the two countries, that Russia was only trying to protect its national interest. And because NATO was, again, US was overstepping boundaries. But that went on and on for 2 years, and then again, all the social media advocacy just stopped maybe after 2 months. And right now, this has been going on since October, so maybe the advocacy will stop again 1 year down the lane.
See, with Ukraine, the entire Western liberal media was obviously against Russia. It still is, because we must understand that the global media and academia are controlled by left-leaning globalists, I would say, people who do not believe in, who do not give much importance to national ethos, but want a pan world, global sort of existence with Western values. Now, Ukraine, the whole thing went on for a while, but then they started losing interest because, first of all, they realized that it's a losing war for Ukraine, and also it was hurting the Western economies. This prolonged war in Russia, so it started sort of tapering off a little bit, and then came the Gaza-Israel thing. Now here, the might of two very big forces in the world who become allies when they are not existing with each other, very interestingly, that is left and Islam. Physically, they do not coexist, they cannot coexist. In China, we have seen that. In Iran, we have seen that. Across the world, we have seen that. But for the last 3, 4, 5 decades, the left and Islam have allied to sort of hit against what is, the hit out against democracies and, regimes like this, liberal regimes mainly. So these two have, these two make a potent combination because Islam has street power and left has the intellectual, has the intellectual wherewithal to sort of completely whitewash radical Islam and, present it as victims.
Okay.
So they sort of, they complement each other. Left doesn't have street power. Islam has street power. Islam doesn't have the intellectual finesse or the intellectual heft or the intellectual bandwidth
To cover up the radicalism?
to cover up radicalism and present itself as human sort of ideology. So that converges in Palestine. In places like Palestine, Kashmir, etc., that converges. And that has happened here, which is why you will see, I mean, a tremendous amount of messaging, coming from so-called liberal sources and whatever, and that is happening in the US, in the left, in Europe, as well as now we see in India. So that is how it works, but there is a counter narrative that there has been a very robust counter narrative, and Israel's cause has been actually championed the most by Indians, very surprisingly this time.
Yes.
So, which is why people around the world are sitting up and taking notice that, well, Indians have also have a very formidable communication machinery, and which is mostly spontaneous. One doesn't need sort of paid hashtags to sort of trigger that machinery alive. So that is what is happening. It is finally, Gitika, it's extremely sad what's happening in Gaza, especially Rafah now. But this kind of hashtags, all eyes on Rafah, etc., these tend to backfire because people are not fools anymore. Everybody has millions of bytes hitting them every moment. So there will be a severe challenge every time there is selectivity, there is fake sort of propaganda. It will be challenged, and I think that is what the controversy is about. That why be selective? Why didn't all these people post about Sandesh Khali when it was happening in their backyard? Why didn't they post about the plight of Pakistani minorities? Just some time ago, a Christian person was almost beaten to death because of some, this completely barbaric blasphemy law there. Nobody posted. Suddenly you are, talking about babies in Rafah and Gaza and whatever. I mean, people will obviously question that. They can't even say that it's the tyranny of distance that, we can't. Gaza is 4,500 kilometers away.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. You're watching The Indian Elephant, and we'll keep an eye out on Rafah and tell you in the following episodes about what's true and what's untrue. Till then, do subscribe to our channel, The Indian Elephant, for more updates.